So I'm here with somebody that, for sake of this, I'll give him the nickname Justice, and um, let's if you want to tell the audience
My name?
who you are and I guess why.
Um,
Well, not your name, but
I'm basically a UFO researcher. I research the topic of UFOs pretty much full time. Um, that's basically what I do. A lot of historical research in the field and helping digitize various archives and stuff so the history doesn't get lost.
so one sees sort of a contrast between my guest yesterday and the one today, in terms of being away from the idea of speculation with the current guest. So that is part of why his nickname is there if he doesn't understand that part. But let's. I actually see the chat comments today, so if people say stuff, maybe we can throw in some extra question or something. Um, so let's welcome him with his 9 vibrations in Vmmh. Gumma lambe Pmlc halaniv fawa. Gumma lambe Pmlc halaniv fuwa. Gumma Pmlc ve Pmlc halaniv fuwa. I think I messed up the last one, but if since you're not familiar, that does contain today's date.
Oh, okay.
Because we are the city of 9 gates, so it's into 9 different parts. Because mine is Eher, He, Hu, Pmlc, Gun, Nuit, X, Ya, Ba. So I have to ask this because it's America.
Okay.
Do you identify yourself as a male or a female?
Male.
So he would be in the third category, the 26 to 45 category. So, what do you think is the purpose of life?
The purpose of life, huh? I guess to learn, to test us, to, you know, I guess make sure we're worthy to continue on afterlife in the appropriate place.
So, what does that mean to you?
Um, just living a moral and ethical life, I guess.
When you do the right thing, is it more likely to be out of love, or doing good or pleasing God, personal enjoyment or pleasure, the hope of the results from your deeds, the fear of the consequences of not doing the right, or the hate for doing wrong, or even those who wouldn't do the same?
Probably. I mean, I think people probably do things for all those reasons at some point throughout their life. Probably just because you should act moral and ethical, but I think no matter how good of a person you are, you probably do things for some of those other reasons as well, at least some point throughout your life.
That's actually a broader version of what I messaged the president on Skype, but he obviously doesn't use that Skype anymore. Um, the basically I was saying without hate, how did I phrase that? Without hate, love, hope, and fear form an incomplete uh, balance and set of motivations for life. Something like that. But,
Yeah.
what do you think happened before your birth? I mean, in a mystical sense, we all know the biological function.
Before birth, huh? Uh, I don't know. I guess probably had some sort of non-corporeal life that we lived in, and when we got born, we transitioned into a physical body, I guess.
Well, I personally believe that us humans were We all were given, unlike the rest of the animals and stuff, they said, no, we don't want to be held accountable. And humans are like, yeah, we can succeed, let's do it. And not necessarily in those words, but yeah. What do you think will happen to you during and after death?
I don't. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I there's a lot of people researching the scientific aspects of the afterlife, trying to prove the afterlife, but I don't think really anyone probably knows for sure what happens. Probably go back to a non-physical body again and live out the rest of your time wherever you end up.
What do you believe about deity?
Deity? Well, I mean, I think there's a God that, you know, created us even before we were here and sent us down here for a purpose, and we return back to him.
So you use the word the phrase "sent down." How does that differ from either Avatar in the modern sense of the word, or like how most cultures that's how they translate their word for prophet?
I guess what I mean sent down would just be, I mean that kind of implies that you were somewhere up above, but I guess I just more mean transitioning from one place to another place.
Are there any limits you ascribe to a god?
Probably not. I mean, I guess it would kind of depend on what people think a god is. There's some people that think that whatever created you would be a god, but I think that a sufficiently advanced species or technology could create new life. So, but I don't know that that would necessarily make them a god. I think a true god probably doesn't have any limits to his powers.
Well, sort of the difference between the demiurge and the real god, because the demiurge was really the word for somebody who they didn't really create anything. They had material and they worked it into something.
Mm-hmm.
It was already done.
Yeah.
What are your favorite attributes of divinity?
Probably love and care and ability to forgive us for the mistakes we make and accept us for who we are and what we do, whatever that may be.
Well, you may notice my letters up there. It basically means the ritual, the place of ritual prayer to the most loving. What do you do in the name of God?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I mean, lots of people do things in the name of God, but they're not always the best things. I mean, I guess all you can kind of do is just try and live the life that He wants you to live. You know, help people and be kind to people and forgive people, just like you'd expect Him to do for you.
It's good that you distinguish between that maybe just doing something in the name of isn't quite it. It's like one has heard the phrase without maybe knowing what it means, feasible, and that means in the way of. It doesn't. You can do all sorts of things in the name of, but if you're not actually in accord with God, then it's not His way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people have committed all sorts of atrocities in the name of their deity, but yeah, I'd say that's probably true. You can claim to do things in the name of it, but that may not necessarily be in line with what the God would want you to be doing.
What do you think would be hard to do in the name of God?
Well, I think there's probably. I think if you, for example, people that suffer tragedies like maybe lose a kid to illness or sickness, and I think that he'd want you to get past that, or say you had a kid that was murdered by someone. I think he'd want you to forgive that person, but I think that would be hard to do for a lot of people. Um, I think it's probably hard to do a lot of things in the way of God, or how you want God, how God would want you to behave, because we are human, so we still have a lot of intense emotions about various things. But
How much time do you think could be devoted to spiritual or religious practice weekly?
how much time? I don't know. I think it probably depends on the person and how much that person needs that spiritual influence in their life to get through what they're going through. I think some people don't need as much time devoted to that, but they should at least spend some time each week in the name of God and worship and spiritual nature of things.
What about on a daily basis?
I think you should certainly pray on a daily basis and kind of at least devote some of your time and thought to God and spirituality. But again, I think how much one needs to do that probably depends on the person.
And of course, I think it also compares what you think is religious is like people that live a principled life, they can kind of have that consciousness in pretty much anything they do, or, I mean, with some gaps, obviously, but, certainly like, who was it? Aquinas? Not Aquinas, Augustus. Augustus, and he basically thought that you couldn't live a religious life if you weren't a professional clergy, more or less. So, I mean, why does the Bible have all those rules for eating and business and everything else if you're not religious just by
Yeah. And there's, I mean, certainly people that would say they devote a large part of their life and day to spirituality and God, and it could be argued that they're not really doing that, that they're just following things that have been written down, but they're doing it almost out of like no meaning behind it, I guess. And they think just by doing those acts and things that they're doing what they need to be doing, but they're not really getting the point, I guess.
So the difference between religious and churchy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't go to churches at all, but are highly spiritual people, because they don't feel that they need that strict, structured religion in order to be spiritual.
Have you had a spiritual experience?
I don't know, not really that I can think of. I mean, certainly can recognize the beauty in things, which can almost be in nature and whatnot. That can almost be a spiritual experience. But as far as something like explicitly spiritual, not that I can recall.
Do you recall any dreams?
I I've recalled quite a few dreams. In fact, I've had a lot of very vivid lucid dreams like throughout my life that have been so real that when you wake up, it almost seems like somebody teleported you from one place to another because it was such a realistic experience. But I think like a lot of people tend to forget them. Like if you recall it and tell people about it, I can sometimes remember them, but a lot of times you forget it. It's fresh when you just wake up, but it's gone by the end of the day.
Have you heard a unusual sound inside you or outside of you?
Inside me or outside of me? No, not that I can think of.
What about with light?
I mean, in I don't know that's quite what you mean, but just in my area of study, I've experienced odd, unusual lights in my vicinity that I don't really know what was. That they seem different. That couldn't quite be explained. for some sort of prosaic explanation, but nothing I could say definitively was something truly spectacular.
Have you ever had any other sort of sense of anything unusual outside of yourself that might not be terrestrial or whatnot?
I mean, I certainly had experiences being places where some places where you kind of felt a sense of peace, and I've also been some other places that, are kind of give you almost an ominous kind of feeling like something bad happened in this area or something, but not a whole lot. And because I kind of stick to more scientific approach to things, I tend not to pay much attention to these things.
Like when I had when I was in the hospital, I woke up. I remember, had I not been in the hospital, I would have had a completely different interpretation of remembering that I was on some slanted table with three little blobby uh, hominid sort of colorful things in the room, and I would have been woke up like, oh yeah, the hospital.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, having been in the hospital for various things and surgeries as well, you can certainly combination between the various meds they use to sedate you and whatnot, you can have some weird experiences. But then, like you say, you remember you're in a hospital, so it's just the meds and not quite kind of being in and out of things and just getting glimpses of things around you that you can certainly attribute to weird or unusual things. But
And certainly me, in terms of the vascular migraines I've had since I was a teenager, thousands of them, I can definitely understand a lot of what is claimed to be experiences. They're kind of probably pretty well explained. Some guy in a migraine, everything's brighter and louder and all irritated and stuff, and um, a whole list of things can be explained through that context.
yeah, I mean, people with migraines, which I also suffer from, have see various auras and various other things, both visually and as well as other altered perceptions that you experience because you're suffering from a migraine. I think there's probably a lot of people historically that claim to have remarkable experiences that were probably just suffering from some illness or had a migraine or just were very sick. And but I guess if they want to attribute some of these experiences, if it improves their life in some way or makes them feel more spiritual, I guess all the power to them.
So it's safe to say that you've never had anything that anybody would call a past or future life recall.
No, not that I recall. I mean, I was talking to a guy at a conference this weekend that was really into past lives and afterlife and reincarnation. And this guy believed that we're only 10 to 20 years away from scientifically proving such things. I'm not sure I would say that's. I'm not sure that's something you could ever actually prove scientifically, but yeah.
I think at least since the 60s, they've shown how you can, in a scientific manner, shown how you can program in a sense of such things, either yourself doing it or other people doing it. And, as one saw with those, some guy probably wrote down a series of cartoon characters, and over the years, all sorts of people started saying, "Oh yeah, they're my inner guide," and they tell themselves, what if I lived it? Tell yourself, start thinking about yourself. What would your life in ancient Egypt be? And then you're going to really find out your life in ancient Egypt. And then people think that they had a life in ancient Egypt, and it's always like Nefertiti, or not always, but way too much.
Yeah, there's certainly, I think a lot of people that claim they were like, say, Cleopatra in their past life, and it's like, well, how can all of you guys be Cleopatra in your past life? But there's a guy named Michael Persinger at, I don't recall what university he's at, but he uh, did these studies with like transcranial magnetic like stimulation, where and I ran across them because people have used it as an explanation for the abduction phenomenon, but by basically focusing strong magnetic fields in certain areas of the brain, you can both stimulate like religious experiences, people that claim they spoke with God, and they can do it basically at will with strong magnetic fields being focused in various parts of the brain. Um, so there's definitely natural or scientific aspects to things that can cause these strange experiences, um, that would not be, I guess, oriented in the supernatural or divinity, but can certainly give that impression.
Well, one of the things they say nowadays, I don't know what the number is currently, but I know it was over 50 a handful of years ago. They said there's chemicals running through our bodies that basically produce all sorts of these highs, and I've learned to produce some of these experiences without taking any drugs or beating myself silly or anything severe that people think that you have to do. Although it does take a long time to develop some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you know, it's yeah. People, I think people got to distinguish between the one and the other, and you understand some of the things that you see, like cave paintings and stuff like this, and acupuncture, and you get in that state, and it's like that's it. That's how they figured it out, because it's like warmth pouring through certain parts or something else going on, and it turns out that there's ancient people had all this art and stuff that had brain patterns, and some of it is just you figure somebody's head was bashed open and it rained and they saw the piece before it rotted.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of different ways you can alter your perception, not just chemical, but like I said, magnetic fields. Just the very act of being very sick on some occasions, or severe migraines. Lots of ways to alter your perceptions that can happen naturally or can be done naturally.
Well, I remember I've had a few experiences, living in that horribly conditioned apartment that they figured they were was so poor that they could get away with not fixing the thing, and um,
Black
every
mold
day for
rings.
months out of the year, it'd take as much as 20 minutes to get up, and I didn't know whether I was going to be able to get up that time. But a few of those times, uh, usually mixed in with like sleep apnea. It'd be like, I guess, people might call it like the alien thing, because there'd be like this like hominid thing. Usually its head was bigger, and either it be, I'm laying in bed trying to get up and struggling to breathe, and there's like some grayish like purple thing laying beside me, or some other maybe bigger alien like above me or something.
Yeah, I've certainly experienced various like hypnagogic states like that. Like I've experienced the old Hague phenomenon, where you're in a half awake, half sleep state, and it kind of feels like something's sitting on your chest and you can't move. But I don't think there's anything really supernatural about it. But I've certainly had that experience.
Have you ever had deja vu?
Um, yeah, I know I have. I couldn't recall a specific experience, but I think probably everyone has had deja vu at some point in their lives. What it actually means and what causes it, I don't know, but
Well, the theory I subscribe to is that the very fact that our brains rearrange what we do in our waking hours and our sleep means we probably thought of something that couldn't be the case during our sleep. So
yeah,
if it happens, we can sometimes.
yeah, makes sense.
I asked, have you experienced a coincidence?
Coincidence? I'm sure I have. Again, I couldn't recall anything off the top of my head, but I mean, there's all sorts of synchronicities and stuff. I tend to think people apply a little bit too much meaning to various synchronicities and coincidences, but again, I think everyone's probably experienced some at some point in their life.
Have you witnessed what you would call a miracle?
Um, Not really. I mean, there's been things that people think were miracles. Like I've been in car accidents that could have been much worse, but I'm not sure that I'd attribute it to a miracle as just pure luck.
Have you had any amazing realizations of any connections? Or epiphanies per se?
Not that I can think of.
Have you experienced prophecy?
No.
Have you had a near-death experience?
I mean, not from the standpoint that when people talk about near-death experiences, people talk about their life flashing before their eyes and or leaving their bodies or things like that. No, nothing like that. Obviously, again, I've been in accidents that you very easily could have died. Things could have been much worse, but never any of the other things associated with near-death experiences.
So no out-of-body
No.
any intuition or what you would call inspiration? I mean, other than just you see something, you think about something. I mean,
Nothing really that I would consider like prophetic or something that I I felt that I thought would for sure happen, but no.
have you ever thought that anything was an expression of divine motion or some other divine aspect working through you, and particularly?
I don't think so.
No awareness of any inner outer guides?
No.
Anything else that would be metaphysical, and I guess that could include something in the psychological realm too, if that's...
Not that I can recall.
Other than what has been mentioned, do you do anything out of a spiritual connection?
Like I said, not really. Nothing spiritual per se. Like I said, I've been places that just either the pure beauty of it or historical significance to an area has made you feel some sort of reverence for it, but nothing I would say is that was strictly metaphysical.
Do you have any sort of relationship, or do you consider yourself having a relationship with anything that is of a metaphysical nature?
No.
Haven't had anybody get through the questions so quick in a long time, which is fine. So there's obviously a limit to what could be shared, but we all have vices and virtues. What would you consider yours?
Vices or virtues? Well, I don't know. I like to buy stuff, spend a lot of money. I guess you could consider it a vice, but virtues. I mean, at the same point, I don't really like judge people or myself based on worldly possessions or my position or status or anything of that nature.
Are there any countries that you're particularly attracted to or repelled from?
Countries? Not really countries. I mean, there's places that I've felt attracted to, like, just like places in nature. Like, first time I went to Utah and saw all these beautiful rock formations and just all this natural beauty that I kind of felt attracted to visit there. And so I visit there a lot more often than I maybe would have in the past, but not as far as like actual specific countries go.
So, I guess more or less it'll. So, in terms of a chronology and of one's religious or the spiritual side of one's life, I know, of course, know you've been a church member, but how would you bullet point that? Or
I mean, obviously, growing up, very religious and going to church all that time, but kind of stopped attending largely for health reasons, and at this point, I've kind of again come to the conclusion that you don't necessarily need to be strictly religious, a part of a structured formal religion, in order to have spirituality and whatnot. And so that's kind of where I am now. I don't really feel that I need to per se go to church on a regular basis in order to feel closeness with God and spirituality and whatnot.
And even the people that join, one of the things you find with that in the group that I'm a part of, is that the vast majority of people, maybe 90% of the people, refuse to sign anything called any membership form, or sign allegiance to the local place or whatnot, unless they want a key or a code to the door to show up more than once a week, or
Yeah, yeah. You get a lot of people that there's a lot of people that may not go to church regularly, but like, for example, a lot of Catholics aren't very practicing, but they'll go to church on Easter and like Christmas. I don't really. That to me just seems more like they're doing it because it's expected out of them, not so much that they really have a desire to be there. And there's a lot of people that go to church not even for the spiritual reasons. They just go for the camaraderie and the people and the association. And I just personally don't feel that that's absolutely necessary anymore.
Who was that guy that was on the? He was on The God Who Wasn't There, and he used to be on shows like Ancient Almanac and stuff like this. And when he was on The God That Wasn't There, he said basically, it's like, now that I'm not Christian, I enjoy church a lot more because I understand there's a meaning and purpose behind this stuff, rather than just uh, a worship of a savior God sort of thing. And I better do it to maintain.
I don't know who that specifically is, but I mean, I think that's certainly true. There's a lot of people, like I said, that go to church because it's what's expected out of them. Or it's just out of habit, but they're not actually gaining much from it or really getting any true meaning from it. And I've also heard a lot of people share similar sentiments that they used to be Christian, go to church on a regular basis, and it didn't really benefit them spiritually at all. And they moved past that and actually became much more spiritual, or interested in spirituality, after they stopped going simply for the sake of going, and actually just started to look at spirituality and whatnot for its own sake.
Well, some people would certainly know that. Oh, I guess you can't see that, but I used to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and one of the things that they'd access, which would be, don't tell people that you prefer one book, or a book of scripture over the other. Tell people that you prefer the family, and that's one of the things nowadays. I think I have stronger family values than I used to. Not that I can consider myself unworthy or anything like that. It was that, and I believe in the truth of the Bible now that I don't have to accept everything it says. That I think I believe in its truth more than I used to, which is odd for some people.
I certainly think that's much more important to kind of get the general meaning of the Bible and not approach it. Something I don't agree with is people that approach the Bible as if it's like a completely literal scientific textbook almost, and use it to support everything from a belief in a flat earth to all sorts of other crazy ideas, because the Bible it's not a textbook, it's not a science book, I don't think it's meant to be taken in its absolute literal sense. I think you're supposed to just get the message out of it, and I think that's certainly more important than reading the Bible as a literal text.
Well, even if something's literally, and even if something is literally true, the word mythology, and you sort of have that idea with every other religion or whatever you call it, is mythology from its root. It means that it's something functionable. It's something that has meaning. It's not just, here's a bunch of facts, learn them, and that's it. That's how society breaks down time and time again. I think it's that you're left with a bunch of people on the hill that have been put in charge of learning the stuff, and and people don't practice it anymore because that's what they did with it.
Yeah, one of the problems with mythology and the word myth is a lot of people misunderstand it. They think that a myth or the mythology is something that means that it's made up, it's a made up story, when that's not actually what mythology means or what a myth means. Myth doesn't mean it's fake or that it's not real or that it's made up. Um, like there's a book called basically it's about the mythology of the UFO crash that allegedly happened in Roswell, and the mythology is basically just the story surrounding it. It may be true, it may not be, but myth doesn't mean something's fake or that it's a made up story or it's a lie, but it's a word that people frequently mistake or confuse for meaning something that's just a made up story. Certainly a lot of myths are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case.
Like knowing languages, I know the Necronomicon, if you know what that is it's representative, but it's not even H.P. Lovecraft. It's one of the fans of H.P. Lovecraft writing something that he thought people would pass off as basically some Sumerian mythology reborn, and linguistically all over the place. The guy confuses Akkadian and Sumerian and Babylonian, and there's more issues than that, but it represents something for people, and it's sort of building as a thought form in some aspects of society.
Yeah.
Like why do you think there's in recent years there's been an upsurge in Lovecraft, and what reason would you think that would be?
Yeah, I don't know, but I would agree that there has been a lot of interest in Lovecraft, particularly lately. I mean, there's all sorts of new audio dramas that are based on Lovecraft works. There's a lot of stuff that people have taken part of that whole Lovecraft, like, plot base, like Cthulhu and all that other stuff that they integrate into their lives and their stories and whatnot. But as to why, I don't know. Maybe it's just they find it entertaining. Maybe they find deeper meaning in it. I don't know.
Well, I certainly see it going beyond the anti-cosmic, anti-human forms of Satanism that are floating around. Like I showed you that little satanic alienism promotion little video that other day.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that view the whole alien phenomenon as demonic in nature. In fact, the recent New York Times article from December 2017 talking about the Pentagon's UFO program, the guy that ran that program, who I also met this last weekend again, said that one of the reasons that program was shut down was because of powerful politicians that believed the phenomenon was demonic in nature. And that seems kind of crazy to think of a government program being canceled because politicians believed it was demonic. But
well,
that's
remember
a major part of it. There's a lot of, particularly some of these fundamentalist Christians that truly believe that aliens are the Antichrist and UFOs and everything's all demonic in nature. And it's kind of funny because they didn't used to think that. If you look back in the beginning days, in the 50s and 60s, Christians actually kind of felt like these visitors were kind of our brothers, and they didn't feel the need to attach a negative demonic influence on them. If anything, it kind of made them feel like their God was more powerful and didn't just create us, but created life on other worlds as well. But there are still people that take a very negative approach and believe the whole thing is demonic, and that the whole thing is happening because they're trying to trick us into thinking they're friendly people when they're actually the devil and demons are going to come take over the world. I think that's a bit extreme. And
something I've certainly gotten a lot, and this could be why, if they don't even know of anything bad being reported, they could say, because I keep hearing that you're looking forward to a great Middle Eastern peacemaker that motivates his people to turn society around. That's the Antichrist. And that proves how evil you are. It's like the great peacemaker. I don't think it says. I think it says, "Blessed be the peacemaker," not "Cursed be the peacemaker." You don't want anyone like that around. Or
yeah, yeah, but I mean, you can't watch a video about UFOs on YouTube without looking at the comments section, and you've got all sorts of people talking about how you need to pray and read the Bible because this is demonic and it's evil, and it's like, I don't really think you need to tie either a positive or a negative attribute to the phenomenon. I think that saying what it is would just be speculating at this point. But if you want to attach some sort of religious or spiritual meaning to it, I think you could take the approach that some people do, that if anything, it just exhibits the unlimited power of God, that He created life not just here but elsewhere. But there, if you look at any video, there'll be people that believe that you're gonna go to hell if you don't, you know, pray and read the Bible and realize that UFOs and aliens are demons, and I think that's a bit much, personally.
Well, even if they are entirely spiritual, one of the beliefs that you may be aware of with me is that I don't believe that anything was created evil. Things have a choice. Like the guy I interviewed yesterday, the become a living demon. Well, it's a choice people make. And on the other side, an alternative to that, I guess all spirituality is kind of divided between that and surrender to God, and a sort of blend in between.
Mm-hmm.
But we certainly have our choice. That's I don't know what your opinion is on the psychological development of a human, but what I have seen is that even when people are raised otherwise, I mean, in person, and I've seen it mentioned with other stuff, and it's like you find all these cults, teenagers turning into cult, the people in their mid 30s, and the little kids, they don't turn it in, but all of a sudden, even though they're taught otherwise, they hit puberty, they get this independent morality that just differs from their isolated society, and they just turn them in. It says, there's some stuff out here that shouldn't be going on.
Yeah, I think also that certainly when it comes to cults and people become associated with all sorts of fringe phenomenon, is that it's not even so much necessarily that they truly believe any of that stuff, but they're doing it for the camaraderie, the friendship. I was reading a book called Escaping the Rabbit Hole. Basically, it's how to help friends and family to escape the rabbit hole. People that believe in all sorts of conspiracies and chemtrails, 9/11, etc. And one of the things it mentions is a lot of the people that get involved with these groups they're almost kind of antisocial in nature. They don't have a lot of other friends, but being part of these fringe groups gives them the friendships and the closeness with other people that they seek. And so it's not even that they truly, deep down believe what's going on, but they're doing it because for whatever reason they didn't have the friendship before that. They didn't have the camaraderie or the positive aspects of their life, and so they kind of gravitate towards these fringe or odd phenomenon or groups of people or beliefs.
Well, as far as the scope of my channel is concerned, I can't really think of anything at the moment. So is there anything you would like to add before I perhaps close her?
Just when you're studying things, no matter what you're studying, maintain an open mind. Look at all the information out there, and try to come up with rational, logical conclusions for things. And if that's spiritual in nature, then if that's what you need or that's what helps you in your life, that's fine. Or if you want to stick to a more strictly scientific approach, like I do, for example, then that's also fine.
So what's your interpretation of the board here? Because except for over here, this is basically my themes I'm going to try to express tonight.
I have no idea. You've got numbers on one side, symbols, and I have no idea. You've got eggs, rhinoceroses, horses, birds, mirror. I don't know. is there supposed to be a tie between the things on the right side and the numbers on the left side?
Well, the numbers are basically the verses of the scriptures of this age that contain a term that is basically the root of another term. So, reacting upon it, atazoth is the term. So tagut or tagia. So there's the various breakdowns of that. So the root and expressions of that sort of thing. And this here is actually just about the only experience I've had that wasn't sleep apnea, I guess, of a thing. And I think it's like I was told this was its chant.
Huh.
And so this word is acquiring. Havaksliv is acquiring, and Rum is knowledge, and its name is Haze Wo Tivub, which basically means Drill Sergeant Gray. But it was, it wasn't like it was a mean thing yelling at me or something. It was just, and it's usually like one of those moments that for some reason, even if I have a blanket over my head, it's like I can see through the blanket and like see as if like the light was on, like clear,
Yeah. Yeah, I think specifically when it comes to, I think the abduction phenomenon, people that, I think it's kind of like just UFO sightings in general. I think probably 95% of it can be explained by things like sleep apnea, lucid dreaming, various hypnagogic states relating to sleep. But there are some cases that can't be explained by that, but I think certainly most can be explained by various sleep-related disorders or phenomenon. But then you have rare cases where the people weren't asleep when they say they saw these things or they had these experiences that can't just be explained by sleep apnea or various other sleeping conditions.
Well, certainly my experience with scrying into various things. Scrying, of course, is practice I do at least 5 times a day, if not more. I mean, that's part of it. Is that little lights appear, your vision zooms in, all sorts of interesting things can happen, and I think a lot of those tales from way back when, instead of that you hear that are spacecraft, it's like, oh no, I see that whenever I scry into marble and chant something for a little bit there. So
Yeah.
So I'm going to close with a few repetitions of the Vmmh phrase that I got there. Vmmh kasaz tevam havakslev wo kilte hazerum zapte. Vmmh kasaz tevam havakslev wo kilte hazerum zapte. Vmmh kasaz tevam havakslev wo kilte hazerum zapte. Which, whatever these chants otherwise mean, they're kind of a centering for me, kind of a representative thing.
Okay.
So I guess that is it. Let me make sure there wasn't any question. I'll just hello.